Susan, good to see you and Moon again. We were working on front crosses, getting a few more of them in, getting positioned for them correctly. And so let's take a look at how you two have been doing on your courses. So we come in here, you take off running together. I normally like that. In this case, since I think you want to be a little further ahead, it might have helped you out to take just a one-step lead out. Keep moving. So now you're coming into serpentine here. You send Moon out, and you do a good job of coming down so you're ahead of Moon. It looks to me like you're at our spot. We want you to be past that standard so that you see Moon's face is between the uprights. And then at this point you keep going, you pick her up, and here's something I want you to keep an eye out for. Because what's happening here is you two are on a converging course, right? So Moon's path is like this, and your path is coming across. And I can't tell by the distance, but it looks to me like I would have liked you to have been more up here so that it was clearer to Moon when she jumped that you were just going to pick her up on your right-hand side as you went off that way. Now the other way to handle this is to treat the serpentine. So you come into it, you would pick her up here as just like you did before, and then once she's committed, I would have you basically cut between the two jumps so that it's effectively a blind cross. Moon's path then goes around the outside of you, and as you move along past here, Moon would be on your left side instead of on your right, and then you could have just rear crossed into the tunnel. So another option you can play with. The moral of the story, though, is on those SERPs, especially when you have to turn the corner on the last jump, you want to be sure you're far enough ahead so that you two don't have a converging line. Okay, so we get going here a little bit. You did a front cross in the tunnel, and then here you're going to do a front cross wrap. Moon read it pretty well, but I would have liked to have seen you here. She's taking off, and you're really just using your decel. You decelerated into there, which cued a collected jump by her. I would have liked to have seen you rotated more so that you're already facing to go in the new direction. So just a half step sooner, and that would have been even nicer. She read it pretty well. You come around. And this was an interesting part of the course. Let me let it run in real speed. So it looked like you either slipped or you were thinking about a front cross. If you were thinking about the front cross there, I would have had you really accelerate from where you are and get to your spot. You could have done that with a little rotation that would have still shown Moon the new jump, and then you could have gotten your cross done and been moving along. So I can't tell if you just bailed on it or not. You came in a rear cross, and then you do a nice job down here as we get into the front. You do a front just as she pops through the edge of the weaves, and then you're off and running. So there's a nice ending on that last one because you really powered along that straight line. So let's take a look at your second course and see how the crosses looked here. So you came up, come around, and here, let's zoom in. Here you're about to front cross again. So Moon is taking off. You had shown some rotation. She fixes it, but once again I'd like to see, let's watch Moon. Moon's taking her step there. You're starting to get your arm up for the rotation, so that was a pretty good front cross. As usual, I'm always going to push you to be a little bit earlier so that you are moving in the new direction as soon as possible as she's landing. That'll make it very clear to her and kind of accelerate the two of you into the course, along the course. So we come on a little further here. Here you're going to do I believe you do a blind cross. So your motion, let's take a look at your motion. You came through and rotated. So one of the things I learned from Jenny Dam that's handy to know about the blind, this is just as good a place you could have done a front there. You're plenty far enough ahead. So not a bad blind. There's no off-course obstacles immediately away. is Jenny says she wants, when you look back towards your dog in your peripheral vision, you should see the dog right before they commit to the jump or as they're committing, because you always want your dog to know where they're going next and how much effort before they commit. And so I would have liked you to have been there just a half stride sooner, so that when Moon takes off, she's definitely seeing the new arm. That worked okay for you, but even sooner would have kept her in extension a little bit longer. But that was a pretty good use of the blind. Let's come along through the weaves. Here you go for the front cross between these two jumps. Actually, I want to let this play in real time. So a couple things there. The upright of the jump surprised you a little, but I think it's because of what happened with your footwork. You watch that again. You kind of took that little skipping step in there when really what would have helped you was to really support the jump, come in, get your cross, and get going. And that little hesitation, I think, threw you off. The other thing that I talk about a lot, and you've heard me speak of, is the front cross line. And it goes from inside edge to outside of the wing. And I think because of that little skip step of yours, you ended up finishing your cross along the inside edge of the next jump instead of along the outside wing, the wing right at the edge of the jump. Let's get this lined up a little better. That's really you want to look at the lines between the inside edge of the first jump and the wing of the other, because that leaves you room to get past the jump. And that's all that went wrong there. You had a good recovery. Kicking her out. And run for the finish. It was a nice run at the end. So let's look at this snooker run. You do a nice job of pulling her through all these obstacles. And we come up for our first jump wrap. Let's see how this one, it's a front cross wrap. So you see her take a jump. So what does she see? What she sees as she approaches this to commit is you predominantly facing this way. You haven't started showing any rotation turning cues to her other than your deceleration as you got into there. So watch Moon. She lands and takes a couple forward strides before turning. And you still never really turned. I'd like to have seen you really rotate so you can face going in the new direction. So you pick her up and away off to your 7-point weaves. Let's see another jump wrap. This is a pretty good example here. Here she lands and you're still kind of facing forward. Right, we would want to see that new arm out and you getting ready to start turning already before she commits. Let's see what Moon does. She'll tell the tale. She lands and it starts to turn, but even on a slippery, kind of rubbery floor, it would have been nice to have saved one of those strides as she landed. So you see she's pretty happy accelerating on this flooring. Gets her weave in. And here you pretty much are doing a throw and go, right? You're sending her to the jump using that deceleration, and then you bring up the new arm to pick her up, which was good. So you get through your weaves, and then I think you're into the close. So here was interesting is you get her in the tunnel, and then you kind of regrouped for a second, and the next obstacles are double, single, far side of the tunnel. So would have been nice to use that time to get yourself positioned, possibly even moving towards getting a front cross way down here, or doing a rear cross on the takeoff of the obstacle before the tunnel. So let's go in, you come up, and now the two of you end up being mostly side by side. She's already landing, and you're just starting to cut over. She's a good dog, and you were able to just push her off. Your pressure on her line pushed her off. But I would have probably counseled you, depending on what the gap is between these jumps, to consider that that's actually not a bad rear cross spot. And here you end up picking her up on your left, and I would have you pick her up on your right arm, and I would have picked her up on the opposite arm and kept her on my left through this next sequence. then that allows you to be ahead as you come into this tunnel. It didn't matter. She came out, and you were all good. You met up together on the weaves and onto the table. So that was a very nice run there. All in all, I like you're doing a lot more front crosses and doing them better than you had in the past, which is great. Just want to get you to do them a tiny bit, execute them a little bit sooner so that she's always sure where she's going next, and be aware for places where you're pushing on a line where the two of you are converging. It probably means you want to be getting further ahead at those spots, or consider an alternate handling approach. Thanks again, and you're looking great.